we rub elbows with you in this community. And it's time for us to feel and to know that we are appreciated, because you are very, very fortunate to have the people that you have in this school system working to educate kids, connect with parents, take care of them, and keep them safe. And we do a really good job. And we don't feel that. And I think I speak for the majority or perhaps all of the folks that work for you in our school systems. And I just urge you to come together as a group of 5 and do what is best for the students and the school, with the guidance from administration that has worked diligently, along with our other officers within the school system, to create a budget that is what this school needs. And we have to be trusted. Nobody's got their hand in the till. Oh, I may make a comment later if allowed, but I am extremely, extremely upset at how we have been treated. And it needs to stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gibbon. Any other public comment? Taylor?
As somebody who was educated by some people in this room and on Zoom as well, I would just like to make my public comment that I stand with everything that Ms. Gibbon just said. I've worked in multiple different school districts in multiple different countries, and not once have I personally felt as disrespected than I do this year. I chose to come back to the Millinocket School Department because I wanted the learning opportunity. And it feels that there's not as much respect as there was before I left.
Thank you, Taylor.
Comment, please?
Sure.
I also agree with everything that Ms. Gibbon has said, and Taylor also. I am actually very ashamed of the things that I read on Facebook that you guys are posting, that people are posting on Facebook. I think it's a shame that adults are behaving that way, posting things that are not true. And I think you better look into the facts a little bit more before you start posting and slandering people all over Facebook or any other social media. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Any other public comment? Mr. Wade?
I'll go if there's no more. The first is actually not my comment. It's Shelley Farrington. She is a resident of the town of Millinocket and an employee of the Millinocket School Department. She writes, "Dear all, due to other work responsibilities, I am not able to attend Tuesday's school board meeting, but I have a few things I'd like to say. First and foremost, I'd like to publicly commend the Millinocket School staff and administration for their hard work and dedication in educating and keeping our children safe this school year. Really every year, but the last 2 years have been doozies, so I believe special recognition is due. Everyone from the Dr. McNaughton's office down to the principals, teaching, support, janitorial, and kitchen staffs in both schools have worked diligently to keep and maintain a safe environment for our students. Thank you all. Secondly, I understand the school board is revisiting its decision on the international student program. As a founding member of this version of the program, Stearns has hosted international students for decades. I strongly support this program and ask you to keep it as part of the Stearns experience. The program started over a decade ago as a way to bring outside revenue to the school. At the time, we need to be creative and find ways to keep staff and programming because of economic conditions and constant demands to cut the school budget. The program has been highly successful, generating over $2 million after expenses that was spent on school programs and staff, according to figures provided by the superintendent's office over the last 10 years. It has definitely saved staff and programs and allowed us to invest in our school in a way we could never would have been able to do. The year before COVID shut everything down, the program generated over almost $400,000 in revenue. Then came COVID. Like a majority of small businesses, and the international program is a business, it was hit hard. The way it makes money is through students. If we have no students, like last year, then the revenues won't be there either. In addition, other circumstances beyond our control, world politics and a trade war have temporarily eliminated a dedicated source of students for us in China. However, unlike a small business, this program was not eligible for payroll protection money or other small business grants and loans. This program has to pick itself up from its bootstraps. The good news is that through the diligent work of Michelle McGreevy, the program's coordinator, and Dr. McNaughton, we had 3 international students this year, all contributing to our school in many more ways than money, but for this point, they did generate revenue. Next year, Michelle tells us she has over 20 European students who want to be placed here if host families can be found. She has already placed 4 students for the next school year. How about instead of cutting the program, we collectively help build it again by educating the community on the value of hosting. That hosting a student is rewarding in so many ways and also generates revenue for our schools. Perhaps you'd consider hosting. My family has hosted students for over 10 years, and I love to talk with anyone about the joy and satisfaction it brings. There really is nothing like it. Let's look positively on this program and how it can grow. Students want to come here. Michelle has shown that. Our teachers, students, and community want them here. I am asking you to work with us to keep this program moving forward. Thank you. Respectfully submitted, Shelley Farrington. And then for my public comment, I would like to discuss the school budget and the comments from some school members during this process. In the Millinocket School Board Code of Conduct, the second article in the document states, and I quote, "I will at all times think of the students first and base my decisions on how they will affect students, their education, and their training." When you are discussing a budget, I don't hear you think about students and their needs. I hear about the town council and their needs. This needs to stop. The discussion of cutting the assistant principal / athletic director position is not what is best to help our students. It is the opposite. The position will add another person to focus on our students' needs, their behavior, their mental well-being, and their safety. This position will also free up the principal to focus the same attention on the staff to help with our needs, our mental well-being, our safety, and our training to become better educators. The current administrative setup does not allocate the time or attention needed to focus on staff training and staff development, which directly affects students. The discussion of cutting the international program is not what is best for students, it is the opposite. Putting the revenue aside, the international students who come into our system leave a lasting and positive impact on our students here in the Millinocket school system. We are extremely isolated and insulated here in Millinocket. This isolation and insulation often has many advantages, which is why the majority of us choose to live here, but they have disadvantages as well. The international program and the international students bring a worldwide perspective to a group of students who are not only isolated from many cultures in the United States, but certainly the world as a whole. I have seen firsthand the positive impact that these students have brought to our community, both in the classroom and in extra and co-curricular activities. This impact lasts a lifetime. So many international students and Millinocket students maintain lifelong friendships today because of the time that they have spent together here in the Millinocket school system. Finally, an increase of only 2.5% to our taxpayers during this time of huge inflation needs to be commended, not disregarded. Many communities throughout Maine, and even our very close neighbors, are facing double-digit increases to their budgets. The superintendent and administration need to be congratulated on bringing a sensible budget that meets the needs of our students and has very minimal impact on our tax base. Again, it is time for you to think of our students and your staff first, not the town council. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lloyd. Thank you for reading for Shelley. Is there any other public comment?
Well, I was hoping to make a public comment. Oh,
I just wanted to just kind of add a little bit to what Matt says. I've worked here for 25 years, the last 15 in the principal's office. And I can assure you that the assistant principal AD is a need. It is not a want. If you were in there to see the day-to-day operations of that office and what we go through, we need another administrator. It is what is best for the students. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Taylor?
And I would like to point out that administrators are a valuable part of our school system. I can't speak highly enough of Josh, Beth, and Sam. So I think it would be foolish not to bring another person in, especially with the middle school and high school.
Thank you.
Can I say something? Hi, I'm Jen Jandro. I'm a special ed teacher at the high school there. And I would like to concur that the assistant principal position there is very, very, very much needed.
Thank you, Jen. Is there anyone else? Yes, you
as a
may.
public person, awesome. So I am not good at public speaking, so I wrote something down. I moved back to Millinocket, as most of you guys know. I grew up here and I wanted to raise my kids in a small, tight-knit community. It was very important that the kids went to a small school where all the teachers knew the students. I went to Katahdin Avenue and had the most wonderful teachers, ones that I still remember fondly to this day, Mrs. Hartung and Mrs. Ganya, along with many others. I'm confident my kids will remember Miss Wheaton and Miss De Silva many years after they have graduated and look back at their childhood. For my kids to be sad today and to say, I don't want school to end, is saying volumes to the teachers and staff. The teachers and administrators have weathered many obstacles throughout the past 2 years and still have provided the kids with normalcy in uncertain times. I love seeing pictures and posts on Facebook of all the fun activities they're doing during the day. The recent kayaking trip was a huge hit and talked about over and over again in the following days. Every decision I make is because of my kids and wanting better for them. Truly, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank the teachers, ed tech, nurses, and administrators for taking such good care of my kids. You guys all to know that from the bottom of my heart, I do appreciate that. You guys really take care of the kids.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Hartley?
I guess I would say that I don't necessarily share all of what Ms. Given and Mr. Wade are saying. I do not feel unappreciated. I give 100% when I am at work, and I don't ever question that what I am doing isn't for the good. I am not on social media. I don't know what they're saying about us. I don't want to know what anybody is saying about us. We are all doing our job, and if, you know, you can't take what people say personally. It has nothing to do with you. It just doesn't. I think what probably, one of the things I found offensive was that a reporter found the need to put the superintendent's picture in the paper for his family and his wife and his kids for all to see in a negative article. I found that a tad bit, you know, over the top, but there's no reason for any of us to feel unappreciated for the person. I mean, at the administration level, yeah, I'm sure they're dealing with a whole lot that we don't really, you know. It trickles down. Yes, it does trickle down, but I do my job, and I don't think anybody's aiming anything directly at me, but I do. The unrest is hard. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, and as the board chair and the spokesman for the board, I would like to apologize to the staff for feeling unappreciated. I don't think that's right. Okay, presentation of a letter from the association, Mr. Wade.
I'll wait for Josh to hand those up. So not only am I a teacher here, but I'm also the president of the Millinocket Education Association, and it's that body that I am speaking for today. Dear Millinocket School Board members, the Millinocket Education Association is reaching out to you on behalf of all its staff members here in the Millinocket school system. Over the past 2 years and 2 months, the time of this letter was June 1st, the students, staff, administration, and community have endured overwhelming challenges. COVID, virtual learning, school safety, learning loss, mental health and exhaustion, and ever-changing protocols, to just name a few. We all, including the Millinocket School Board, have met these challenges head-on. For many of them, we had no warning. We had no experience with dealing with them and no time to plan a successful strategy. Even with all of these challenges and obstacles in our path, we have never lost sight of our shared purpose to successfully educate our students, keep them and our staff as safe as possible, and provide the most opportunities we are able to, given the restrictions and resources available to us. We do recognize that on many occasions, the school board have been partners with us in overcoming these mountainous challenges, and we thank you for those occasions. Together, we can continue to meet the needs of our students and our community. Unfortunately, we have also noticed a number of concerning behaviors by some members of the board which threaten our ability to work together and undermine what we believe to be our common goals. Because these behaviors and actions have seemed to be more frequent and more public in recent weeks, we can no longer be silent. Please understand the damage these actions do to staff morale and our working relationship. Your staff is left feeling unsupported, underappreciated, and increasingly uncomfortable in their employment at a time when we need to continue to all be working together to address the aftermath of the last 26 months. It is creating an unhealthy and hostile work environment, which leaves staff to question if our employer has the best interests of our students and staff at the heart of its decisions. We have many specific instances which violate school board policies, and those policies are listed here, BBA and BCA. A copy of these policies are attached to this letter with the specific areas highlighted that have been violated. Due to FERPA and Maine labor laws, these instances may only be discussed in executive session, and the specifics do not change the fact that these policies have been violated. We are bringing this to your attention so that actions by school board members which break policy can be stopped, and we can begin to fix the relationship between the board and the staff. Identifiable changes in behavior and action will go a long way to restoring trust, and will be incredibly important to our success in the future. We want to partner with you in this healing process, and we hope for a brighter future for the staff, the students, the community, and for you as a board. Thank you for your time and attention. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out. Sincerely, Matthew Wade, President, Millinocket Education Association.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. Motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes of the school board meeting, May 31st, 2022, bearing any errors or omissions.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? 5-0. Motion for the payroll warrant, please.
Motion to move to direct the superintendent of schools to authorize payment by the town treasurer to each party listed herein the sum set against each name contained in the school payroll warrant number 22-26 in the amount of $168,306.94 on June 16th, 2022, and main PERS number 22-12 in the amount of $37,590.30 on June 6th, 2022.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor? 5-0. Motion for the payable warrant, please.
Motion was to move to direct the superintendent of schools to authorize payment by the town treasurer to each party listed herein, the sum set against each name contained in the school payable warrant number 22-37 in the amount of $33,413.51 and number 22-38 in the amount of $82,768.29 on June 16th, 2022.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? 5-0. We have a motion for the changes on the solar power credits, please.
Motion that, move that the vote entitled vote to authorize the purchase of net energy billing credits be adopted in the form presented to this meeting.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Louis, are you going to?
Yeah, so we have a couple folks here regarding this document tonight. So at the last board meeting, the solar project was voted on to move forward with it. So the next step in that process is have legal look this over to ensure that this, meets the needs of the school. So we have Aga Dixon from Drummond and Woodson is with us tonight. And then we have Tina Reserve is, I believe she's with us. Oh, there's she, right, sorry. Tina. So I guess I'm gonna turn things over to Louis to have a discussion about that, but I don't know if Agatha or Tina, you wanted to start having the discussion about the suggested changes. Because this contract and the motion does not reflect the exact wording of the original contract. So I'll welcome you first.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. It's nice to be here with you. I will just give you a very quick overview. When the superintendent reached out to me, I looked over the contract and made some fairly minor and standard changes to it to reflect the best terms that we've been able to negotiate with Revision Energy for all of our school clients who are signing up for net energy billing. So the version of the contract that you have is essentially that it incorporates some specific protections for your that protect your future interests legally. It is still, however, a firm contract, meaning you're signing up for a 20-year commitment, and the vote that you have in your packet reflects that the sort of business decision that you're making today about this contract, the fact that you understand that it is a 20-year commitment, and the reasons for doing so are laid out in those lengthy whereas clauses. I normally don't write school board votes that go on and on like this, but as you know, net energy billing is a relatively new program in Maine. And the nature of this project lends itself to having something in your permanent records that folks in the future can look back on if they have questions about what the reasoning was for the decision. So I'm happy to go through the details if you wish. They're very legalistic and they don't change any of the business terms that you've become familiar with now, but and I'm also happy to answer any questions you may have about how the mechanics of these contracts.
Anybody from the board have a question?
I have one.
Go ahead, Joe.
We're changing this. So this is a contract. Does the solar company agree to these changes? Well, we have Tina, we may want to give Tina an opportunity to speak, because Tina's here from the
Okay.
division, so Tina, would you like to say a few words?
Sure, yeah, AGA has worked with our legal counsel on, like 30, 30 or more contracts probably. And we're very comfortable with, accommodating our customers as best we can to meet and support the amount of risk they can take or what they need in language. And we feel comfortable with the contract language that is proposed to you.
Any questions? I have one. If we should happen, and Louis and I kind of discussed this, if we should happen to close like our elementary school, what would happen then? Because we would not need the power that we've contracted for.
That's a very good question. Under the contract terms, you are committing to purchasing the number of the percentage of net energy billing credits that is listed in the contract, regardless of what your future needs may be. That said, I did negotiate in a provision that allows you to come back to the negotiating table with the seller, which won't be Revision Energy. It'll likely be an investor that will take over the obligations of the contract. So Revision, this is standard operating procedure to transfer the contract in the name of the investing company. So the contract does have a clause in it in Exhibit 4, I believe it's Section 9, that provides that Revision's investor will agree to sit down and amend the contract to, so long as you can find another entity that is equally creditworthy to step into your shoes for the remaining obligation. So the idea is that there, nobody really wants to sell you something that you have no use for. The thinking is that the legislature has closed the door to this program for the most part. So the projects that are safe harbored may continue, but new solar projects are not going to qualify for net energy billing. So there will likely be a universe of prospective buyers that have not been able to sign up for these contracts and would be happy to take over the obligation if you find yourself under the unfortunate situation of having to close down a building or have a dramatic reduction in electricity need in the future. But until you do that, until you find somebody to step into your shoes and take over that obligation, the school department would be required to continue purchasing the credits even if they don't use them.
And if I can add to that, the other safeguard that we have is that we size your project at 85% of your load. So the chance that, in the future, if you close a elementary school, you have a buffer there if you need less. And, the conventional wisdom is that you're likely going to need more electricity in the future, with the legislation saying that we've got to transition to electric school buses and vehicles. And then just as, technology and things change, usually that requires more electricity, not less. So there is a buffer built in there, and why we size them at 85 or recommend them be sized at 85% of your load, so that you do have some leeway should there be changes in the future. And the only other thing is, we take it as part of our responsibility to make sure we have lifelong partnerships with the organizations that we work with. So, Revision would be there, by your side, helping you find off takers for any load you didn't need. That's, we commit to overseeing the projects for the life of the contracts. And so you would have a direct contact right back to Revision to help you with that process should that happen.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, the reference I was making is actually Section 2B of Exhibit 4, which is on page 7 of the contract packet.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? Seeing none. I have a motion and a second. All in favor? 5-0. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Notification of summer school and summer food service staff. We're in one. Okay. I need a motion to approve Bimbo Bakeries.
I motion to approve Bimbo Bakeries as, I thought you should joke, by the way. As a bread provider for the 2022-2023 school year.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? 5-0. Motion to approve Oakhurst.
Motion to approve Oakhurst Dairy as a milk provider for the 2022-2023 school year.
Second.
Motion, a second, discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? It's really a good thing you guys approved this because they were the only two businesses. Number 10.
Motion to approve an adult meal price increase from $4.50 to $5 for the year for the 2022-2023 school year.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? I have a question. That's still is not going to bring us up to like the state level or anything like that. Is it? We're still, yeah.
No, this is a small adjustment just to help us offset the cost of food.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? All in favor? 5-0.
Now, we'll be summer school.
Would you please?
All right. So this is notification for summer school and summer food service. Summer school program, we currently have 36 students registered, which is great, and I encourage folks, parents, if you still want to register your child, and if you're not, please reach out to Danielle McNally. The director of summer school will be Danielle McNally. Teachers will be Alyssa Laporte and Daniel Waite. For ed techs, we have Shelley Farrington, Angela Guy, John Hogan, Dave Jamo, Corinne Reese, and Taylor Sulander. And as far as food service staff for the summer, Alicia Campbell, Lori Arsenal, Catherine Lewis, and Donna Stevens.
I have a question.
Sure.
We talked earlier about extending beyond the August 5th or 6th date until school starts out. Is that a go or
We're
is that?
getting clarification on that because that has to go through the state.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're talking the food part?
Yeah, for the
Yeah.
summer lunch, the
I
summer
want to be able
lunch.
to feed the kids right at the start of the school.
Right.
But we have to follow some regulations, so we're getting clarification and we sure.
And if it's because of a cost, Josh, Banquist is able to fund that. We've met, we've talked,
Okay.
so we just have to find out if it's a go or not with the cost.
Yeah, if it's, as long as we're not violating any food service regulation, the state will be good to make that happen.
We just need to make sure that the employees want to work those extra 3 weeks.
The only questions I've been asked by people is, oh, we get a hot lunch. And that's because of the commercial on TV. It says, you know, the students this summer will be getting hot lunches. Sandwiches.
Yeah.
Yeah, they gotta get a meal, but because of an ad that was on TV, some people thought that that was going to be everywhere. So. Anything else? Number 12, copiers.
Motion to approve the new copier lease as presented.
Second,
Want to comment?
is there anything you want to add regarding?
No, this is a copier lease that with Transco, which does our copiers and our computer print, all of our printers throughout the building. We've had a great track record with them, done a lot of business with them over the years, and services. Nobody would complain about the service. They've got the largest fleet on the road, and this particular offer would allow us to buy out our current last year. They're actually gonna buy out our last year of copiers for us, so we would be getting new copiers a year in advance. So we get new copiers this July, a year ahead of schedule, basically, and actually our price will go down. So it's pretty much a win-win for us. They're actually going to leave one of the older copiers that we have that doesn't have a lot of hours or more life left in it, I should say, for us as an additional backup at Granite Street, which is where we do have a need. So again, another big plus for us over there as well. So in this day and age, to see a price on anything go down is it's a very rare thing in my world. So
How many copies do we make, Louis?
we make currently this right around 800,000 is what we're going to contract for. And some would say, I think it was you, Kevin, many years ago, said, "Oh my God, we make 800,000 copies." And I said to you, Kevin, 10 years ago, we made 3.1 million copies. So, you know, we've kind of leveled out in the 900,000 copy range.
And you mentioned that, we buying that other copy or
No,
they're giving it
they're
to us?
letting us use that, and it'll be covered under their maintenance agreement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? 5-0. Thank you, Lou. Number 14. Report discussion of water testing.
Yeah, if you want. Something chair, please.
Love to be seen and heard. That's my wife. I'd like to discuss the results of the lead testing that was performed back in April. This was due to a new law, LD 208, that was passed a year ago by the legislature, mandating lead testing, lead sampling for all schools in the state of Maine, where any drinking water and water for consumption was used. The state contracted with Granite Analytical, and trying for me to try to do all this testing with Granite and doing testing at Granite has been a bit of a confusion. But the state subcontracted basically this whole program out with Granite Analytical for the testing. And so that's who, for the most part, I've been working with to get all this done. So we did lead testing, or I did water sampling at both buildings back on April 9th. And the type of sampling that we did is called first draw sampling. So it basically required, the state's requirement was that water sat in the taps for 8 hours minimum. And then you take the initial little pint of water that comes out of that tap. And that basically gives you an indication of what is essentially in that fixture and in the minimal bit of piping that's below it. It's the most accurate type of sampling that you can take. However, it also kind of can give you some alarming results based upon that type of sampling that you know, you can freak out about if you don't really know all the ins and outs of sampling water. So the samples were taken on April 9th. They were sent to the lab. The lab
I got the lab report back on May 16th. They emailed the lab report back to me, so I found them in junk mail. I had been looking for it. It took a month to get the sampling done due to just the high volume around the state. Currently, volume of sampling is 3 months getting samples back. So this is not a speedy process with the lab. The lab is covering all the fees, which is great, but sampling can go from $20 to $100 per sample. And we did, I think, 18 samples at Granite and 20 something samples at Stearns. It's a lot of, well, more than that. That was just on another list. But anyway, a lot of sampling and a big cost. This would have probably cost us over $3,000 had we had to assume the cost. But the state is picking up the cost of all of that. When I received the samples back, I received instructions as typical with the state. That once the state typically always follows up with a letter saying, you've had your samples done, this is what we found, this is your formal notification that this has all been verified, and you will have so many days to proceed. Well, I waited a week and no letter followed up with the lab report that came by email. I called the lab, I asked them, could I take next steps and get this done? I really don't want to wait around, and we need to start working on this now. We know where our need is. So they were not aware of where the state was. They said there was a great backlog with the testing program, but that we were perfectly in our right that they would stand on the lab report as we can operate off that. That is when we begin taking all the necessary actions. So what those actions, so in the lab report, came back, because we had several fixtures that were elevated in lead levels. So a sample that came back as a 1, and this is a 1 in meaning parts per billion, 1 part per billion. So if you think of an analogy as a fuel tanker, it's one of those big 10,000 gallon fuel tankers rolling down the road with 10,000 gallons of gasoline. If you take an eyedropper and you drop 1 drop into that tank of 10,000 gallons, that's 1 part roughly per billion. It's just under a part per billion. So that would be how much of that substance is in that 10,000 gallons, just so you have that to wrap your head around. The main limit, one relatively means nothing was detected. 1 to 3 means that yes, something was detected, but flushing of the water, cleaning of your aerator type of thing is satisfactory as far as continued use. Anything that is a 4 or over, the main CDC recommends marking it for not drinking and providing corrective actions, which would be filtering or changing the fixture, and obviously further testing as well. The federal EPA guidelines actually allow us to drink water up to 15 parts per billion. Their thresholds, the Maine is actually using much more strict calibration for what they're allowing. So basically, and anything over 15 needs to be mitigated. Action needs to be taken on any fixtures or any sources that tested higher than that. So we had a few fixtures that came in, well, quite a few that came in at 1 to 3, 4. We had several that came in over the 15 threshold. And basically what that means is we had a certain routine of actions that we had to take regarding where each fixture came in. So we went around the building, we identified every fixture as to where it came in. It was either marked not safe for drinking. It was either turned off completely, removed from service, or the minor ones are just flushed on a regular basis and water continued use as normal. So with those results that we got, that the next round of steps that we take, we've already done the mitigation of, we turned those fixtures off that are not safe. We've directed, no drinking on certain ones. So we've complied with all of those things. Once all of those things were complied with, a letter had to be sent home to parents. This is a federal rule around the country that testing was done. Notification has to be sent home, so we sent home notification of which fixtures tested high. And that is the list of fixtures that are not safe for drinking or removed from service. Those are the ones that we will need to take corrective action on and work on in the next months. If you look around the state, this is all published information. Every school that has done testing, these are all published on the state's website, and we're no different than most schools. Any school built after 1986, some of the Camden schools show 0 lead levels. Well, they were built after 1986. That's when the law changed and no lead was allowed in soldering, plumbing, those types of things. So, all the older buildings, it's interesting to look at the results around the state. Is there's a trend. There's a trend in all of the schools that are of older vintage. So it's not uncommon, it's not alarming that I bet 95% of the houses in Millinocket are gonna have elevated lead levels. This can be greatly minimized if you run the water and flush the water out. We have done lead testing here, the water company has done lead testing here for many years. And they do it for their own, that's their own private testing, it's nothing we pay for, or that's for their own records. And when they do lead testing, they do a flush type lead testing. So they let the water run, they will go to 4 or 5 different places around the buildings, they'll take a sample, we'll get the sample back, but it's what's in the pipes, but it's a fresh, clean, not what's been sitting in the pipe for several hours. And those samples have always come back good. So I've never had any concern here or Granite Street that we have anything to worry about as far as our supply water that comes into the building. That's been tested by the local water company. The issue is the fixtures. It's my opinion, and testing has shown for us, we have some old fixtures. The areas that tested high are our highest fixture. Unbeknownst to me, I asked the person, and I erred on the side of caution in testing. I tested anything that somebody could remotely take a drink out. Most of these probably don't have to be tested, but anything that anybody remotely might take a drink out of, we had tested. Our highest level came back in a sink in a closet in a storage room that I found out later had to turn on in 3 years. Well, over 3 years, you're probably gonna, and a vintage, when the school was built type of water faucet, that's gonna come back high. Does that alarm me? No, that's what you would expect out of something like that. Water flow is a big issue. So for us in both buildings, the water flow, using the water is a big thing, and the age of the fixture is a big thing. And our plan is to go through and change any vintage old fixture to the new certified lead-free fixtures. That's easy, no-brainer, first line of action. There are the places that we can add filtration that will help. But a lot of the sinks, say in classrooms at the elementary school, some of these sinks were blocked off, and I had to actually move furniture to get to the sinks. That tells me nobody's using this water. That's why they're testing, 10 or 12 range, and most of those tested even safe under EPA regulations for drinking. But a lot of stagnant water was being tested. I could have gone through and run all the water the night before and flushed everything out, and we could have gotten beautiful results. I don't think that's the way to go. I would like to know a true, where do we stand with all of this? What is our safest, best bet for testing? That was my approach. And we have a list to go by. So the next steps that we're doing, according to what we have to follow through with, is verification testing. So we've got to do we're in the process of doing another round of testing. That will verify the initial results. Tomorrow, I guarantee you can go down and get a whole different result from a different fixture, because it may have been used a lot the day previous. So we do a next round of verification testing. We do then a flush testing that tests what's in the water lines, as we've typically done before. And take the steps of filtration, changing the fixtures until we verify that what's coming out of those taps meet the safe standards. The silver lining, is there a positive to all of this? Yes, there's a positive to all of this. We now know, thanks to the law, we now know it didn't cost us anything to find out. And we know where we need to improve. A real positive for me is 99% of the water that students drink is safe. 99% of the water, and the only other 1% of the water is probably the water the kids bring in bottled from outside, is from our drinking fountains. And both buildings have drinking fountains that have filtered water, and proof in the testing that the filtered water works. Those were a great addition that we got a few years ago through COVID money, and that's working. Proof that buildings built after 1986, the new wing at Granite Street tested fine for drinking. That means no lead and solders. And people don't get excited about the lead and solders because the water company does put in an additive in our water that coats the inside of pipes. So that water that's in the middle wing of Granite Street, that's perfectly fine for drinking, shows me that the water is also flowing through all the other parts of Granite Street to get to that middle pipe. And it's flowing all through those old pipes, perfectly fine and perfectly safe. The issue is stagnant water sitting in old faucets, which can easily be remedied and easily changed. So with the results, probably 90% of the fixtures that tested high for lead levels are actually in closets. They're in places that nobody would ever drink from. But we tested them to be sure. We have some of the classroom sinks have bubblers on them at the elementary school. I tested them. Kids don't drink from them. We will probably remove them, and just to make sure kids drink from the fountains in the quarters. That's the way it should be. And then by removing them, it just takes away. Most of them that I went and looked at were already capped with a soda bottle or shut off to begin with. So, yes, we have some fixtures that tested high. No, a lot of them weren't even being used. So that's why they tested high. So, when you look at the big picture and the facts of why we are where we are, for me, I think we did pretty good given the age of our buildings, given what we have for fixtures, knowing 99% of the water is not even being consumed that tested high. I think that's a real win for us. I think another real win for us is we were one of the 50% of schools that have actually completed this testing. This was all mandated to be done by the end of May, and 50% of the schools in Maine have not even started this process. And the ones that haven't started it are going to be in a real bind because the state has now said, yeah, we'll extend the deadline to the fall, but nobody can do testing in the summer when there's no students in the building. So next fall, when they start doing testing and they're going to find results just like us, now they're going to be in the middle of the school year and they're going to be shutting things off really in a bind, trying to do this remediation when you've started school. So, I think, it's always concerning. However, I think it's not the end of the world. It's nice to know, and we can make these changes. We've already begun ordering faucets and we've got some filters on the way. We do weekly flushing of fixtures now. I think we can certainly move forward and have a positive outcome with some new information that we have. And I think it's a positive thing. I drink the water here. My son drinks the water here. My wife drinks the water here. I want the healthiest water for everybody. So, that's the long and the short of it. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Good job.
I have a quick one. The corrective action is flushing. Is maintenance do that, or are the teachers required to do that, or who does that?
Typically anybody using water in a class, you turn the water on before you use it, a little bit's gonna come out. Anything helps. So any teacher can do some flushing before you use. Perfectly safe to wash your hands in water that has elevated levels. You take a shower in elevated levels. Consuming it's a different thing. But yeah, flushing we do it throughout the building in our parts where we can get the mains flushed out. That would be on our end, and then certainly teachers that have the ability can let the water run for a few seconds before they use it. But bear in mind, this is only for drinking water. You can wash your hands in the water. You can take a bath or a shower, and it's not going to hurt your bit.
So is it mainly in our fountains are where we can drink?
Yep, which is where everybody drinks currently. So.
I was just to say, are some of the faucets and stuff, are you not gonna replace them, like the ones in the?
I'm gonna replace anything, I went to the band area, that one tested high. Well, I looked at it and I know that faucet was put in the day Stearns auditorium was built. that's definitely a no-brainer, it's gotta be replaced.
Right.
Even though that faucet probably hasn't been turned on all year,
Yeah,
I'm still gonna replace it.
okay. So
And we're
you're
still gonna
replace
test
all
it,
of
and we're
them?
still
Yeah.
gonna verify that it's gonna meet the proper level. Yeah, we'll certainly go over, I will go over and above, trust me. I want it to be the best, you know, I want everything here to be the best. So there's no stone I won't leave unturned until we have it all where it should be, and the testing will come back to verify it.
Is the state reimbursing us for this faucets or is something we have?
There are EPA funding available. They have just typically with all of this, and so they roll it out. The funding hasn't become available yet, but they are going to make funding available and we can apply for grants to help offset the cost.
Do any of the board members have any other questions?
If anybody does, at any time,
I would like
I'm a
to,
wealth of knowledge.
I'd like to open it up to the audience, the parents, the grandparents, the staff, if anybody has any questions for Louis.
The water in the kitchens was okay.
Stearns water at Grand Street, Stearns, the cafeteria water was fine. At Stearns, we moved to bottled water for cooking. That tested a whisker over the 4. With flushing, that means it would be fine, but we're not, until we change the faucet, put a filter on it. Even in both kitchens, even though they tested fine, I'm gonna filter the water in both kitchens, just to go over and above and be safe. I just, you know, why not?
Anybody else from the audience have a question?
Hey, Warren,
Peter?
sorry, Peter, hi. I, just a community member here, please. I'm Peter Jameson. I really just appreciated Louis' explanation of the testing results and how they come about. I thought it was a different take than what we have heard so far. And I think with his involvement with it, that was really helpful to understand kind of a firsthand picture as opposed to big picture. So yes, appreciative. Thank you.
Hey, Peter. Anyone else have any comment? If not, let's jump into a budget workshop. Thank you, Lloyd. Good job.
This Thursday is almost 11:30.
We just got an update on the Northern Maine Championship game. Stearns and Machida. Stearns unfortunately did not win that.
So there are some board, budget documents, in case anybody can get them up here. So I want to first address the issue of why we're bringing this back to the board. So the last time we had a discussion with the board about the budget, I think the international program created a lot of confusion in there. Because when we had the discussion, that at the time was a debt to the budget, okay? Because we didn't have any promises of anticipated revenue coming in there. So when the budget sheets came out, they reflected numbers that were different than discussed because of that. And I think that created, like I said, a lot of confusion. So what I want to do tonight is kind of take a fresh look at this budget, walk back through it, that way we can answer any questions, clarify everything. And then hopefully leave here with a draft that's supported by the board. Because we have some of this new information now that's gonna actually put us in a better financial situation than the last discussion. So the first thing I'm gonna do tonight is I'm gonna talk a little bit about the anticipated revenue. I'm gonna review some of the project expenditures associated with the international program, so I know there's some questions about that. And then we're gonna talk about the carryover piece, and then with that, we'll look at our final, our bottom line, if you will. So the first sheet I'm gonna start talking about is the international program, 22-23 school year sheet. So the last time we talked, as I mentioned, there was a debt of about $83,000 to the budget because we didn't have anticipated revenue at that time associated with the program. And the reason that was in there is because we had contracts that we did not want to violate, for us to be liable for those contracts. So what I'm gonna talk about is the anticipated revenue. Okay, that is not guaranteed funds, but that is something that was predicted or forecasted to bring in. So thanks to a lot of hard work from Michelle, we now have in writing 2 confirmed contracts, one from Lee Ren and one from Zabal. Okay. So Lee Ren, 10 students is gonna bring in $17,300 worth of revenue. Zabal is 136 students, so this is gonna bring in $200,000 worth of revenue. Ningbo and Junie, we do not have any confirmation from them. They have been very, very silent, so we don't expect or anticipate any revenue from either of those schools. As far as students attending Stearns next year, as Michelle and it's been noted earlier tonight, that we have approximately 20 students that want to attend here. As of yesterday morning, we have confirmed 5 stays for host families, so that number has gone up. So you're talking an additional revenue of $55,000 there. So this puts our anticipated revenue with this budget at $273,000. That number does not include the summer programming. Unfortunately, we have not had a lot of takers on the summer programming, so at this point, I'm gonna say it's probably not gonna happen. Something could materialize last minute, but it's highly unlikely. So is there any questions about the international program and the anticipated revenues?
We will also take, after the board has a chance to ask questions, we'll also take questions from the audience. So everybody will know what's going on.
In previous years, I know that the dual diploma program only usually 30 to 40 students on average have participated. So 146 is a huge difference. So they're confirmed students that are going to be.
Yep, we have these in running. These are actually from our contracts are actually written for hundreds of students, which usually the schools can't typically fill on the other end. So yeah, this is what we've got confirmed in writing from those 2 schools, Lee Ren and Zabal.
But we didn't get to see the contract beforehand.
I can give you copies of the contract.
Ask for that.
Any other questions? So the next page, international program looks like this. So this is our deck piece of the international program. So what we want to do is take a look at that. We know we have anticipated revenue $273,000. This is going to take a look at what it's going to cost us to run this program. So if you look down through, there's salaries, there's health insurance, workers' comp, unemployment pieces in there, postage, advertising. This does, for transparency, I want to make sure everybody understands, this does include the summer program, okay, which is a big piece of the $83,000. So as we stand today, like I said, it's probably unlikely that it will occur, but this does account for that should we be able to pull that program. So that totals $83,000. So if you look at our 272 of revenue, and then minus 33, we're looking at an anticipated revenue to be able to use in a budget of $188,000.
I have a clarifying question on the expenditures that would be for the summer program.
Yep.
If I know that you are wisely keeping that in there in case something does materialize.
Yep.
If something doesn't materialize as you are expecting, does that revenue change?
So no, because what would happen is this would, if let's say it's gonna probably cost us $50,000 or $30,000, that would go into anticipated revenue. So
Okay,
yeah, So based on some decisions later for the board, that could be, you know, typically what happens, that goes into carryover for the following year. Gotcha. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Is it?
The top of the second page in international programs, under, on very first line, instructional program revenue.
Yeah.
Should that be 273,
No, that's probably a typo.
300? It should be the same figure
Yes,
as
it
it
should
is
be.
on the first page, correct?
Yeah, that's probably.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions, additions?
I probably don't want to jump ahead. Do I?
I don't know. I don't know what your question
Well, I
is.
noticed that international tuition wasn't on here before. And now it is here. But it's only 129 something.
Yeah. I'm
So
gonna
I'm going too far, okay.
Well, I'm gonna talk about that, that's one of the decisions the board's gonna have to make. So, any other questions about the anticipated debt for the international program?
So if the anticipated revenue, well, actually, it's not anticipated. We have written contracts for Lee Ren and Zibo.
It's still considered anticipated revenue for funding purposes.
Well, we don't have it.
Because until we receive that in our pocket.
We don't have it in our pocket yet, but we do have a written contract for that.
We do.
So if that anticipated amount is $273,300, and the expenses for FY '23 are $83,374.64, then the international program will generate an anticipated revenue over expenses of $188,925.36. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So what I want to look at next is our carryover page. Okay, and this carryover page, what we did is broke down all of our expenses that we are looking at to spend that carryover. You can reference the carryover on the town share budget page. It's on the far left column, about halfway down. So we had $595,000 that carried over from last year's budget that we could use. So looking at our proposal, a lot of this is contracted pieces that we really can't change, and then there's some pieces that we've made adjustments to in preparation, so I'm gonna run down through those. ED 279, there was a $17,000 difference, so when that came back, they were essentially asking the town to pick up an additional $17,000 of local contribution. And so, at an earlier board meeting, we had a discussion about covering that amount for the town, okay? Oil, unfortunately, I think everybody's feeling the pinch at home. Same thing here, we've had to put an additional $155,200 in the budget to cover our projected increases in oil. Electricity is the same story, projected increase of $38,000, our kilowatt expense doubled. Water and sewer, there's a small increase in there. Kids piece, so when I originally presented the budget, there was $100,000 in there. We have since had one student move away that was slated for that program, so there is a reduction there in the savings. The next is the athletic director and excuse me, assistant principal position combination. And that's at a cost of $77,000. We have stipend increases, and that's contract based. Based on our special ed numbers, our numbers have not changed, however, the needs of our students have. With some of the impacts we're seeing in COVID, we're seeing more and more students that are identified qualifying for additional services. So to be able to support that, we're proposing 2 ed techs, one for this building and one for Grant. Occupational therapy, so we have one full-time person, and we contract out for some additional time. And then based on our caseloads and the identified services of the students, we propose putting an additional $13,000 a year, okay? That is billed out at $62 an hour. Again, there's contract negotiations and that's district-wide adjustments to teachers' contracts.
I have a question, there, John.
Yes.
Why did that change from 120 to 231? That's one of the concerns I had, the things that we said, the 100,000 and this,
Mhm.
it isn't what we voted on. So I think it's just, personally, I went through the whole, everything. The expenses are basically what they were before, except for the AP position, I think. That's my question is, we talked quite a while about the 100,000 for kid piece,
Mhm.
and we couldn't move on it.
Right.
That would have made a big difference. That would have put us down 20,000 extra.
Well, at that time.
At that time.
Yeah, because if you recall, I mentioned that's where we're at right now. Like I said, we've had a student move, so.
So those were my concerns, that some of the things changed. It was presented to us when we voted. And that's why I contacted you and did.
Well, like you said, a big part of that was this, because we went from 153 because of the international contract, because that was debt to the school department. And I think that's where a lot of that confusion came from. Health insurance, so there's an increase there of 52 and change. Tuition, so we've had, with COVID, a lot of staff opportunities for professional development tuition were kind of squashed due to them not having the opportunity to take courses being canceled. So when we survey staff, we've had an increase of staff that are interested in going back and utilizing that part of their contract. Physical therapy, there's a slight adjustment there to offset some of the increases in services. Student transportation, that was a contract that was negotiated earlier this year. And then the special ed secretary was a piece that was discussed with the restructuring of our special ed department. So if we keep, is there any questions about the report for?
Now, I have a question about the ED 279.
Yep.
Was that because we lost student numbers?
We did lose some student numbers, yeah.
Are we in year 1 or 2? Because usually it's a 2-year cycle, correct? For your ED 279?
Yeah, but there's also, within that, there's a lot of other formulas that, like town evaluation, there's offsets for rural communities. So that spreadsheet was like 3 pages long, is one giant working formula. So we can contribute some of it to a few, because there are a few students to homeschool.
I just was curious if the difference, I guess because it's a 2-year cycle, are we carrying the burden on one budget of 2 years, or is there normally always an adjustment?
There's always an adjustment, because depending on other programs, for example, gifted and talented went to run for a program. If you buy any type of transportation items like a bus, you get adjustment, kids piece for you. So some of those come back 2 years down the road.
Right.
So you always have an adjustment year to year.
Okay.
So
I just didn't know if we were in a year where we're covering 2 years of an idea within one budget, was basically kind of. what my
yeah, I mean, with a
question was.
$17,000 adjustment, that's, yeah.
And that's adjustment is to get the full subsidy.
Correct. So the difference, we looked at last year what the town paid, or the citizens paid, and we looked at this year, and then to get our money from the state, local money had to come up $17,000.
And it gave us how much extra from the state for that 17,000, you know?
You're not gaining anything extra, we're covering that through our.
Well, the state gave us more money though.
Oh, yes, yeah, so that's on the next. All right, so this is the town share of the FY 2023 school budget sheet. So local EPS formula You can see last year, I'm gonna focus on the two left columns, okay, there's 3 years on this sheet. We went from 1,193,000 to 1,210,000. But again, in that formula, there's adjustments of what local contribution has to be to achieve that state funding. So we want to use carryover to offset that for taxpayers. Our local debt service, that's the boiler project, that's gonna remain for another 2 years, or is it 3, really? 2 more years. Yeah. Local additional appropriation was 1.5. Adult ed, so a slight increase there from 28 to 32. And then local lunch appropriations to offset the cost of food service programming for students, that has remained the same. So the total local appropriation, okay, was last year at 2,910,000. And I'm gonna talk about our proposal now, which will bring that in with an increase, okay? Everything that we have here listed on your carryover sheet, if you remember from our first discussion, it was $77,000 difference. Okay. Now that we have strong anticipated revenue from the international program, my suggestion is to use that money to cover these pieces along with our carryover. Okay, so by doing that, we'll actually, the entire budget, okay, is only gonna come up 2.2%, but what we're asking our taxpayers to pay is actually going down by 1.10%. So we're actually coming in negative to the town versus asking the town for additional funds. We're in a unique situation. Our carryover is not gonna be this high every year, we can guarantee that. A lot of that was a detriment to our school department by having struggles finding staff, not being able to buy certain products, COVID, right, it kind of snowballed on us. So we do have a higher carryover there. The other thing that, is occurring, I think next year that did this year is the international program. This year was a very rough year for it financially, but now that we have some strong anticipated revenues, that's our suggestion, is that we utilize this money to take care of the changes in the budget that we've suggested, and it won't increase. We're not gonna ask for anything additional from the town. So with that, I'll take questions.
Kevin?
So the 129,773.59,
Wait, where are you getting this, Kevin?
Yeah, so,
come on, direct and control,
okay.
Okay,
that's what we're budgeted for, 6-1 down.
Yep.
International program,
So that number represents,
to get us to zero.
that represents the $77,000 as well as the debt of operating the international program. So if you take those two figures out, if the board approves to do that, we should be looking at an anticipated revenue of 129,000 out of that program for this year.
So that will leave us with another 150,000 in that account.
It'll leave us with 129,000 in that account for this year moving forward.
and what about the amount that we still owe the town from this year?
So as I've stated publicly before, and I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but that was some pieces that legal counsel is working through. Anticipated funds are not guaranteed funds. When we say anticipated, that is a projected, a forecasted amount. We're not guaranteeing that program's gonna raise that level of money. And so I'm gonna leave it there with that, so.
But aren't they, if I'm understanding correctly, isn't what the town has paid for bills has exceeded what we've brought in for revenue?
That's something that legal is working through with the town to get better grasp on that piece. So should that be the case, and once those pieces are worked out, we have $129,000 anticipated extra money in that account to address that issue.
Or we could have the flip side of it too.
Possibly. I mean, we obviously, operating a program, it needs to pay for the debt that it's gonna create, right? So,
Absolutely.
but, I mean, the last piece that I've heard was, if that is the case, when we're talking about $30,000.
I'm sorry.
We're
What was
only
that?
talking, if that is the case, if there's a debt there, it's only about $30,000.
Okay,
So this 129 will be more than enough to cover that. And this will also put us in solid financial standing with the program for the future. And that'll be a very helpful amount of money to carry over into future budgets to help offset, so we can continue to try to come in as flat as possible to the community.
Yeah.
For Josh.
Yeah.
not for you, it's for- At the council meeting, you had mentioned when we were discussing, I wasn't part of the discussion, but when there was discussion about the town continuing to pay, and please understand, I have very limited understanding of what goes on regardless of who I am. I know you had mentioned that there was a check, an anticipated check or income anticipated from previous students. How are we feeling about that coming in? Has to come in, and if not, is there a plan to get that?
Yeah, it's supposed to arrive. Is Josh on? Because it was.
Yes, Josh.
Hey, Josh, is that?
Hey, guys. Yeah, that did arrive last month.
Awesome.
And those are the students that we issued proposals to for this year.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Peter?
Hey, thanks, Warren. I just wanted to add some clarity to the narrative of owing the town money. It's not necessarily the town as a separate entity that is, interested in taking this expected revenue money. The fact of the matter is that anticipated revenue, right, is expected to go into the general fund for the town, which supports the school. And those funds are meant to go back into that general fund to offset the school's budget. So it's not money made by the school to go offset like the municipal budget and salaries and things like that. It's meant to offset the budget for the Department of Education. I just wanted to add some clarity around that kind of verbiage that, we owe the town money. There's a little bit more of a caveat to it than owing the town, with the intended purposes of the funds. So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other questions?
No, I just wanted to write something down.
Ms. Given?
Are you opening it? Is the board done? I
don't see the board asking any more. Does the board have any more questions?
That's a whole bunch, but go ahead.
You got a whole bunch?
Well, I'm still not, I guess I'm still not understanding. If we have anticipated revenue of 200 and. Let me see the number, 273. That's actual money we could put towards the budget, because the expenses are gonna be in the budget. The homestays and all that are already in the budget.
That's true.
So why do we take it off the top, and then it's almost like we're double dipping for the revenues there. If that revenue comes in as 273,000, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And our expenses are only 83,000, which are already in the budget. Student housing, that's in the budget, right? Is this part of our budget?
This is anticipated debt to, hey, Josh.
Yes,
The piece of the international program, the debt sheet that we created.
yes.
So Kevin's question, is that represented in the revenue control pieces?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, so the $83,000 that
Yes.
were the debt of the international program. Is that represented? We want to ensure that that's not represented twice with this sheet in a debt to the program and within the budget itself.
No, it's not.
So there wouldn't be any double dipping there.
So the biggest difference now, we have revenue from the international program, has
That's the-
changed everything.
That's the big story. When we first had that last discussion, we were sitting there having a debt of $83,000 to the budget to operate that international program. Because the board had made a decision, we obviously didn't want to violate the contracts and discontinue the program. With this anticipated revenue, that changes things dramatically, and it changes things to the tune of $270,000 and change.
Plus the $50,000.
Yeah, the 50,000, that didn't change in our budget, in the expense part. So that was, I don't know if it was just wrong, because I went back and looked at the new one I got and the old one I had, and it was still the 220,000 with a $50,000 difference.
Okay.
So the expense part, I went through every line in the expense, like I said, and it's only showing the assistant principal is the only thing that I'm seeing that's different than what we had. I shouldn't say assistant principal. Let me go back and look at what I highlighted.
Well, our original discussion, if you remember.
Extracurricular is an athletic director. That's what it was, $50,000.
Yeah, that's the AP position. So
That
it's
was different than the last time.
Correct, because that was added to the budget. Because that was supported. And that was at $77,000 total that we discussed.
I guess.
Ms. Given?
Is the board done? Are you- can the public speak?
Kevin will probably have some more questions.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm on the town share page. And I can't imagine that the town of Millinocket, considering food, oil, electricity prices in our own homes, would not be jumping for joy that the local additional appropriation increase is actually a minus 1.1%. This board, it has administrators working for it, and our director of maintenance and the building principals and everybody creating a budget that allows us to go out to the town with an increase that's just a single digit. You only gotta go 12 miles down the road and it's double digit. They should be applauded. Those of you coming in through via Zoom, this is probably unheard of in many communities around this state, given the cost of items that we all use in our homes, let alone in buildings this size. I think somebody used the word no-brainer, and I think it was Louis this evening. I'm gonna use it. Again, it seems to me it's a no-brainer that this budget, if it doesn't go out as a 5-0 vote to the council for approval with public support, then there's something definitely wrong in this community with the thinking of people around the school system. This is unheard of right now. All you have to do is go up Central Street Hill and the gas is 506.9 a gallon. Come down over Central Street Hill 30 minutes later and it's 511.9. It goes up in the blink of an eye, as does electricity, kilowatt hours, as does food. Take your same grocery list to the store week after week, it's never gonna be less, and it's not the same price. So in my opinion, for what it's worth, probably not much. This board should vote this budget up 5-0. Stand shoulder to shoulder at the council meeting on Thursday night, not sit behind one another, shoulder to shoulder, and tell the town council that this is how the cow ate the cabbage. This is the budget. You ought to be really pleased at what we're bringing it in at. End of story. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
all your hard work. I appreciate it.
Any more comment? Like you said, Warren, I'm sorry. When you get old, you hear things sometimes. Any other public comment? Any more comments from the board? Do we want to take this out of a discussion and make it a motion to accept this, budget?
I would just like to ask about procedure, and is this following procedure? Because we already voted on it. And now we're being presented with something different. Again,
The
different
same, the
numbers.
budget that was presented.
I can fix that. I would like to reconsider my vote from the last time. I was one that voted in favor. I can request that. Because the information changed after we made our vote. When I looked at the stuff that was sent to the town, it wasn't the same thing I voted on. So I want to make a motion that we reconsider the last vote on whatever day it was, June. I don't know if it was June or May 31st. To reconsider the vote from the last budget.
Second that.
So the motion and a second, all in favor?
What are you voting on?
We're gonna vote on the old budget again.
I'm confused. I don't-
Well, because I'm withdrawing, I want to change my vote. Remember, I was the third person to vote for
I
it
did.
last time,
I do.
but then I got information after the fact. So I want to change my vote from back then, so that one doesn't pass. And then we make a motion to pass this one. I think that cleans everything up.
The one that went before the town council was not the one the board.
That we voted on. We were given
That's the
something
reason
different.
why.
What was different?
First page,
The anticipated revenue piece was.
that stuff was all different.
I mean, that just like that, in that revenue just
The
was
50
anticipated,
the
like all of a sudden.
We had 100,000 on this page.
Air, all of a
Right.
sudden.
I have 100,000 right there, and that's
170 I know,
50,000
but
difference.
like in a week, we got contracts signed and.
No, but I'm saying that
And
100,000 changed from
insurance and-
50,000, that would have changed my vote.
By changing his vote, we can start
It
over.
would have been not passing.
But now are you saying that you want to revote to send this one to the town
The new one, I
council?
want to rescind
We have to get rid
the
of
past
the old.
vote, because we already voted on it.
Right,
That's what I was asking about when I
Huh?
said, what's the procedure?
That is the procedure.
That's what I was asking.
That is the procedure.
Correct, and we had a motion, we had. a
Like
second,
you,
so-
the two people that didn't vote for it, I'm not gonna point at anybody, two people couldn't bring it up again. It has to be somebody that voted for it,
Correct.
and I voted for it.
Right.
That's
So
Robert's
this will
rules.
allow the board to make a motion on what was presented tonight, the new figures, the adjusted figures. So what we need now is, because you made a motion, I think Dawn
I
made
seconded
second,
it,
so
we
we
need
need
to
a
vote.
vote.
We had a 3-2 vote on it.
Okay,
What did you
Well,
guys
Well, I
vote
don't
on?
think they
I don't, I
understood
was
it.
gonna say, I don't think I understood,
Oh, okay,
Can we re-vote?
sorry,
that's why I asked some questions.
okay, sorry.
Yeah, so a voting to support that will allow another motion to come in with the figures that we discussed tonight, and then the board will vote on that motion.
Right.
To either
Okay,
support.
I agree.
And that will be the one we will put before the town on Thursday.
So we're voting again.
We're after,
We're voting to do away with the
Pardon,
vote.
I'm asking a question.
No,
I'm just
I
hearing
can
comments.
clarify,
so,
no,
okay.
no, procedurally,
because like Kevin said, procedurally under Robert's rules, because a motion was moved, seconded, and voted, and the motion was carried. Now, a member who voted for that carry has to now say that they want to reconsider that motion.
That makes sense.
So the first thing that you are going to vote on is reconsidering that budget. Then the second motion, and I'm not gonna, you will decide what that second motion will be, but that allows you to discuss this new budget on where you want that new budget to go. It's a procedural, and I completely understand where you're coming from, because it does get confusing under Robert's rules, but that's the procedure that you have to follow.
So we need to vote to approve that.
We gotta vote to do away with the old one.
Right.
Right.
So it's gonna be no vote on the old one, I think. Maybe I'm messing myself up, I'm probably overthinking this. We wanna do away with the old one, so
Just by you removing, you sending your.
I'm gonna say
that
no,
makes it-
I'm gonna make it a no.
That makes 3-2.
Well, as long as the other people still say
Go
no.
away.
So that makes, that's right, so that makes
Okay.
it.
Doesn't matter what we-
So, right, it does not, so what we need now.
But we don't wanna say yes, though. Right? We wanna say yes. We do.
We want to vote to reconsider, and if you don't want to reconsider what you brought before the council before, everybody votes no. And then you put a motion on the table for the new and go from there.
And that's where we are in this process.
Right.
So we're voting to
Motion for-
reconsider.
Vote to reconsider.
Okay.
You motioned it, I seconded it.
Okay.
At some point.
All right, so Kevin made the motion,
I seconded it.
Don seconded. Any more discussion on it?
Does the reconsideration, it come with any time to like digest this information that was just given to us? Just like the last time we voted on May 31st, we were given stuff a few hours before the meeting. I wanted time to look over the numbers. We voted. I'm asking again, can we have some time to look through this and make sure it makes sense? And just have some time to digest it. If you want us to truly reconsider.
Well, the reconsider is for the original vote.
Right.
That's
So that
what we do with the
questionnaire
new
would come after we
Okay.
vote to reconsider, then that would, when the discussion comes up, that would be the appropriate time to ask that. There's a question on the table, is does the school board want to reconsider the budget? And that's what we need to vote on now, if there's no further discussion.
No further discussion? All in favor of reconsidering the old
Okay,
5-0?
thank you.
The old budget's coming now.
The old
Well,
budget's
just
gone.
gone. So now is what I presented to you guys this morning.
Was that close, Mr. Wade?
I would consider, am I allowed to suggest wording?
Yes.
The motion should be that you move to remove the already presented budget that was voted on May 31st. If you vote to remove that budget as presented, then that 5-0 vote will carry that now that is removed. And now you can move further. And I just want to double check with you, with your experience on parliamentary procedure.
You can either vote to reconsider, and you don't want to reconsider it, so nobody votes yes, we all vote, no, I don't want to reconsider that. Or you can do the wording that Matt said, either one, but you want to get rid of what you did, apparently.
So we gotta
So that's
take
what you need to do,
So you want to rescind the vote on May 31st?
yeah, something,
Essentially,
yeah,
Yes.
remove it.
Yeah, we're gonna take it to the next step.
Well, that's what.
Yeah.
that was the
That's the
motion that
motion I made.
That's the motion that Kevin made.
Is to rescind.
okay.
And he
The
said,
wording was rescind and not
I said
reconsider.
rescind.
Rescind,
Yeah.
rescind, okay,
Right.
thank you very much. We heard reconsider.
Oh,
that's
rescind,
fine.
sorry.
rescind,
Okay, thank you.
I was confused.
and it went 5-0.
Correct.
So the old
Budget is gone.
budget is gone.
If, yes, wording and rescind, yes.
So now,
Well, we're meeting with the town on Thursday
Well, we need a motion to look at this one before we can have a discussion, right?
Correct.
We need a motion and a second. And then discussion.
The motion was what?
So
I
somebody,
move to approve the budget that was presented tonight.
I second it.
So we got a motion and a second. Do we have a discussion?
I feel like I did last week, I'm sorry, but I feel like we were given like 15, well, no, more like 35 pages to look through. And we got it at what, 2 o'clock this afternoon, 11 o'clock this morning? And it's completely different than last week. Like,
Can we have a special meeting?
I'd really like
tomorrow?
a
It
special
have to be
meeting.
tomorrow.
I would, I mean, I just like, this is huge. This is big decisions, big different numbers compared to before. Huge changes that happen like overnight. I would like to really look through it and ask some questions from Josh and Warren. And I am more than available to meet all day tomorrow, anytime.
Have to be in the evening. Sorry,
Can Zoom.
What did you say, Kevin?
have to be in the evening for me. Well, after 5 o'clock.
I have no questions about it. I would consider it right now, but I'll,
I mean, I have a job, I have kids. I mean, I only have
I
like
know
4
I
hours
can
to.
be here tomorrow, whatever.
Whatever. That was best for you,
Well, 5 o'clock's best for me, but
Erica,
That works for me too.
Michelle?
Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say that, I mean, this is common practice. They're not doing anything out of the ordinary that hasn't been done in years past. I mean, if you've had it since 11 o'clock, I mean, things change constantly. So you need to read that and be prepared before you come here. And secondly, I just get the sense that you guys have a level of mistrust for the superintendent, and I just find that very disturbing. So I just had to say that. I mean, you have to trust your leaders. They have the experience. They know way more the details of how finances of school work. There's nothing wrong with asking questions, but I'm getting a feeling of mistrust. And I just it's disturbing.
Yeah, I can only go on what's presented. And the
Absolutely.
presentation tonight seems like the right thing to me. I'm no.
now,
genius
most of
with
that,
budgets.
if we want to vote, we can vote. There was one member that said wanted some time.
well, you gotta vote one way or the other, because you got a motion on the table.
So right now, we're gonna discussion, and that's what we're doing, so we're discussing options.
My vote would be to approve the one that, just throwing that out there. I can't do the work that he does. Or they've done, all the work they've done here, that Josh has done, I'm no accountant. And this all looks fine to me, and we're making money now, in my opinion. We're giving money back. I mean, it just makes sense. I don't know what you're gonna get more out of what you have here that we went through tonight. Now,
Michelle.
I don't mean to sound ugly or anything.
Well, but
Don't
I
get me
mean,
wrong,
as
but I
a
don't get
voted
it.
elected official, don't you guys think that? I mean, everyone voted for us to ask questions,
Yeah.
to look at things from both sides of the view. I mean, I don't know, given some, like, I mean, we've got like 5 different versions of this since the beginning. Every single time we meet, there's something different going on. And we're
And that's
finding
how it's gonna
out.
happen. That's how we
That's
say.
yeah.
Okay.
20 or more.
Michelle, I appreciate who you are.
I think you do.
I don't have an understanding of the finance, I certainly don't, and town finance and school finance are very, very, very different. What you're dealing with, you know, Tammy can attest to that. So I appreciate that you ask questions, I really do, it shows, you know, I think what Tammy, I might have to feel a little bit of what Tammy is feeling like. you know, if it's mistrust or if it's just, you want all the pieces. And if you do need to go home and just take it in or whatever, I would just hope that you, when you are looking at it and trying to decide, that you're using your own decision and not being influenced by somebody else perhaps, or opinions of others or whatnot. And again, you mentioned that you prefer to talk to Mr. Stewart and Mr. McNaughton before making a decision, so I'm assuming that the questions you need to talk to them about are things that you cannot ask in public. And anyway, I just want you to know that you take it seriously, and I would have a hard time too. I've been through many budgets, so I appreciate you asking questions, but I have to agree with Tammy, it feels like there's something else there that but I appreciate what you're going through.
Given,
It's time to vote this budget up. The townspeople deserve it. And your school employees have done an incredible job putting the budget together. It includes things that we need, personnel, and programs, and technology. We hire people to do the work, and we have to trust them. I feel as though there's a great deal of distrust for our administrators. This is how the budgeting process works. It can change. Like I heard Louis say 20 times, but obviously the international program came together. And that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing, it's a good thing. And for an increase to the town, that is just a single digit and a very low single digit, they ought to take it and run with it. But if it doesn't come out of here with a 5-0 vote, then it's gonna be a struggle, because they're gonna wanna know, well, how come you didn't support it? There aren't any more questions to ask. It was very detailed tonight. Very detailed. More than I've known in a while. Very detailed. We're presenting a budget that the town can afford to support, and it's got to come out with a 5-0 vote. Now.
thank you, Terry.
Wow.
Sandra,
Wow.
Sandra,
Hi, my name is Sandra Sullivan. I live at 104 Sunset Drive. And
I need to see a face, please, on the poll.
And I thought I did.
No, sorry.
Okay. I'm sorry. I don't know how to do that. I thought I did. Evidently, I don't. And so I can't make a comment because you can't see my face.
Sandra, on the bottom left-hand corner.
Is a video camera, and I click on it and I'm not seeing anything, so.
She's on a phone or a laptop.
You have your camera covered?
Yeah, is your camera shut off or covered?
Forget it. In my opinion, you wouldn't listen anyway, so thank you.
Well, yeah, thank you. Okay, at this point in time, ladies, what would you like to do?
I already answered that. In light of everything that's been said and talked about and discussed, I still would like till tomorrow to process everything. I feel like I was just bullied and I really need to think about it. And probably my answer will be yes, I'd like to approve it, but I would really like to have the night to think about it.
Erica?
I answered that. I would like to think about it and look over the numbers because they've changed several times and I want to make sure that it looks good. And I think that's reasonable. I just got this stuff today, a few hours
The
ago.
only, I'm
And so I
gonna,
would
the
like to
only
read it
thing that's
over.
changed in this is the international program and kids fees. That's the only changes that were made.
I want to make a comment. When we first started this process, I asked for two things. The list and coming to zero, and we're coming at a negative 1.1. My vote's gonna be yes. Do we want to give them time to look this over? If it comes out as a 3-2, it passes. That's what a democracy is. If it's 3-2, it passes. We all have to live with it. I've been on the end of the losing, where I was a minority. I still had to live with that motion. So. I'm gonna ask the same question I asked last time. What is gonna change from today to tomorrow that was presented tonight? I'm not hearing anything, so.
We got a motion and a second to put this budget before the town Thursday night. Is there any more discussion on it?
I think it's actually being reviewed next Thursday, not this Thursday.
This
This Thursday, I think it's wastewater.
And we have.
And something else.
They have a special meeting.
Peter sent a request asking that if the board approves this, that we would go and present on Thursday.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So I think that's an adjustment to the agenda, but it hasn't made it official until obviously the school board's gonna make a
Yeah,
decision.
Mary Alice did a presentation.
Yeah.
for you.
Okay.
All in favor of putting this budget before the town Thursday night? Raise your hand. Yeah. 4-1.
Oh, you can ask for no's.
I would like to abstain because I
Yeah, you
wanted,
can't abstain because you don't, an abstention is an act in which you have a,
Vested interest.
yeah,
it could be
and a
a
vested
conflict of
interest.
or something along those lines.
Yeah, there's gonna be a conflict of interest in order to abstain. 4 yeses, are there any no's?
are there any other changes that could be coming even just in a couple of days?
Not that we're
Because
aware of.
we've seen this change so many times that I just want to make sure,
We could get
That we're
more
not gonna
international
have-
students, but that,
or the other way. I'm just, that's why I'm,
Yeah, so let me try to answer that for you, Erica.
Thank you.
So the other two contracts that we have is Ningbo and Juni, and they are silent. They are not responding to us. They have not responded to Michelle for the entire school year. So the likelihood of us picking up any additional or that changing is slim to none. You know, if we were in the midst of conversations with them, I would, suggest otherwise, but we're not. They're being silent at this point. They have been throughout the entire year. In fact, one of those schools is going through a complete ownership change, so.
would those two schools then, by being silent and not honoring their part of the deal, are those contracts possibly null and void, or would they?
They're not null and void, they're still in existence because they extend out several more years.
Okay,
The board would have to make a decision to take legal action against them for not fulfilling their end of the contract. The problem with that is usually it's gonna cost you more than you're gonna get. But if that was something the board wanted to consider, you'd have to get legal counsel on that as well. But-
Erica, can I say something that the budget we voted on before? That was our budget. There's been changes made. Those couldn't happen unless we did what we did tonight. So if we voted this up tonight, we can't make changes. And that's what happened last time. There was changes made. And it's not supposed to happen.
that's why I asked the question. Are there gonna be more changes?
There can't
Because
be. They can't.
But they did the last time,
Just-
that's what I'm
just like
saying,
that
that's why I
budget.
asked, it's just a question, because
But that
the one
budget,
we voted on May 31st did get changed,
it got changed, and that's the reason I questioned it.
right?
That's not the same budget we voted on. They can't be making changes.
That's why I asked the
that's
question,
the-
it's the
that's the-
same one you had,
Same rate now.
right?
The same rate now. So if we vote on this tonight, they're bringing us Thursday, there better not be any changes in it.
If there is, we can send it.
My other question was the two schools that did confirm.
Yep.
I want to know how solid that is.
I mean, we have it in writing from them, we have emails confirming the exact number of students and the cost.
Okay, and is email, that's good as word, like that's,
Yeah, so what happens next is, we take this and it gets processed by the Chinese educational authorities, and then we receive a check.
so that,
So
there's
there's-
no way that that could suddenly be gone, that they could change that number because they've confirmed through an email.
They've confirmed with us, this is what, how many students. Now, the
There's no
doors always
history
been
of that.
left open if they want to add to it, we've never stopped them, historically.
There's no history of them changing, so there's
No,
no.
Oh, yeah, there
no-
is. Like, that's what happened last year.
That was COVID. In COVID,
We're
we can
still
still
in
have.
COVID.
I think it's a
And
good
it
question to
could
ask.
change
that's all.
tomorrow.
Just- It's a good question to ask.
I know, but we're
Reasonable.
relying on,
These two schools have positive credit histories. So, yeah,
Okay.
I mean, they've confirmed with us, the Ren said we're sending, we got 10, Isabel 136. So, I mean, we've never stopped them from adding, if they come back tomorrow and say, hey, I want to add 11, well, okay, good.
Yeah, my concern was that they would take, if they took
Yeah.
anything away, just because of our relations with China. That's been my hesitation this whole time, that I've expressed at every meeting where we've discussed the international program, is that our relations with China has changed. And I love that we have these numbers, but I feel apprehensive, and I hope that that's understandable. That's not the same as me saying I want to cut a program. That's me saying I have apprehensions because of the atmosphere between the two countries. That's so reasonable. That's not me, I'm not making that up. That's in the news every day. That's not equal to me saying, we'll cut the program then. That's me saying, oh my gosh, are we spending the right money in the right place right now because of what's going on in the world?
Our only option
Which is
here at
reasonable.
that point is if we say no to the international program, because we're not gonna risk that. And what does that do, except put us in backwards? from debt? We're using it right now, I understand, and there is some danger, there's some risk. That's life, though, is the way I see it. With this stuff. It's
Well,
like,
can I call
there's
for
gonna be
a vote
danger and
again?
risk.
Call for
Yes.
vote.
We're gonna move the floor and call for a vote. All in favor of putting this budget before the town Thursday night, please raise your hand. You got a 5-0. Thank you. Now, there's one other thing we gotta discuss. July 5th is our next meeting, regular board meeting. And do we want to hold that? If we don't hold it, then it's that, would you call it 7-year thing? Yeah, that 26-day cycle change. So it'll be 3 weeks before our next board meeting, if we don't hold one on the 5th of July.
Doesn't have to be the 5th, can it be later in the week?
Well, we'd still have to come in and sign the warrants.
So they're coming to sign warrants, which traditionally, what's happened in the past is they have held a board meeting, and we put board members come in and sign warrants.
So everybody, is everybody in favor of that? To make sure you come in and sign the payables and the warrants?
I hear a question behind me, and I think I have the same question. It's 2 weeks from now is the 28th.
We're going 3 weeks in between payrolls.
But there's an extra payroll. To have 26 pay, you have to have 26 pay periods.
Every
One
Sunday.
runs into the 5th of
Okay.
July.
Gotcha.
Plus, okay, it's gonna be before that. We're okay in that payroll. Is that right? I think that's right.
Yes.
To July 3rd, the June 30th payroll needs to be moved to July 7th. So that the fiscal year only contains 26 pay periods. And therefore, beginning July 1st,
Why can't
that
we do
next fiscal year will only contain 26 as well.
we do them
So there'll be a
both?
3-week gap between the payroll that you just signed the warrant for and July 7th.
Can we do the 20, can we do them both at the 28th, both those payroll warrants?
Well, if we have board members coming to sign the warrant, so we can process payment, and then we can vote on it.
So we weren't having the 28th, it was gonna be the 7th,
Yeah, the next meeting is
2 weeks and the 28th.
Kevin, we're changing from going to 2 weeks. This next one goes 3 weeks and then it will be 2 weeks after that.
Just like it says.
That extra payroll.
My question, Cameron, is can we do that extra payroll on the 28th, have it to 28th?
No, because payroll is not going to be processed that week because that would give us 27 payrolls in this fiscal year. So that's why the payroll has to be moved. It happened in 2016. It happens
Going on next,
often periodically.
going on the next fiscal year, then.
Correct.
57 years.
So is the board okay with coming in and signing the payables and the warrants instead of holding a regular board meeting?
That's fine.
I want to thank everybody for coming, your patience with Zoom, your patience with the board chair. Have a great summer, guys. Enjoy yourself, get some more sun. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Motion to adjourn. Thank you.
Second. Motion to adjourn.
No executive session?
Oh, we got an executive session, right?
Oh, yeah.
Motion.
We need to get the people off in Zoom. We have executive.
I'll do
session.
that, yes.
Thank you. Motion to go into executive session.
Motion to adjourn executive session pursuant to number 1 MRSA 4056A, duties of officials.
Second.
All in favor? 5-0. Can I request like a 5-minute break? Before we started,
You're the chair.
I was requesting a 5-minute break.
Michelle's already going.
Did you say that?
I did,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Yeah.